The crowd of onlookers parted like the Red Sea as Olivia Ventura was dragged through the town square of Stillwater Creek, her wrists bound with coarse rope that cut into her skin. Whispers followed her burden, trouble, worthless, as the town marshal hauled her toward the stagecoach that would carry her away from the only home she'd ever known. "Your uncle made it clear, Miss Ventura. With your parents gone, he wants nothing to do with you," Marshal Higgins said, not unkindly but with resignation in his voice. It was 1875, and an unmarried woman of 22 with no family willing to claim her had few options in the Arizona Territory. Olivia held her head high despite the tears threatening to spill. Her uncle Theodore had made his position clear in the telegram that arrived 3 days after her parents' funeral. "Cannot support another mouth. Find employment elsewhere." Just like that, she was cast out, labeled a burden by the only family she had left. The stage driver loaded her single trunk onto the coach. Her entire life packed into one wooden box: a few dresses, her mother's silver hairbrush, and $15 sewn into the hem of her petticoat. "Where will you go?" asked Mrs. Granger, the general store owner's wife who had shown Olivia kindness when few others had. "Copper Canyon," Olivia replied, referring to the mining town 3 days' journey to the north. "They need a schoolteacher." Mrs. Granger pressed a small package wrapped in brown paper into Olivia's hands. "Some food for the journey, and this." She slipped a small Derringer pistol into Olivia's pocket. "A woman alone needs protection." Olivia nodded gratefully as Marshal Higgins helped her into the coach, where 3 other passengers already sat: a drummer selling patent medicines, an elderly woman clutching a Bible, and a young man in a dusty suit who barely looked up from his newspaper. As the coach lurched forward, Olivia took one last look at Stillwater Creek, the place where she'd been born, where she'd nursed her parents through the influenza that took them both within days of each other, where she'd been declared unwanted. The town disappeared behind a cloud of dust, and Olivia Ventura closed her eyes, willing herself not to break. The journey to Copper Canyon was brutal. Spring in the Arizona Territory meant scorching days and frigid nights. By the second day, the stage had broken an axle, forcing the passengers to wait 6 hours in the shade of a rock formation while the driver made repairs. On the morning of the 3rd day, trouble found them. The stage rounded a bend to find 4 mounted men blocking the trail, bandanas covering their faces and rifles pointed at the driver. "Throw down the strongbox," one of the masked men demanded. The driver complied, tossing down the iron box that contained mail and whatever valuables were being transported. Now all passengers out, valuables on the ground. Olivia clutched her small reticule as she was forced from the coach. The elderly woman sobbed quietly as one of the bandits snatched her wedding ring. The drummer surrendered his sample case with shaking hands. When a bandit approached Olivia, she stepped back, unwilling to surrender the small amount of money that stood between her and starvation. "Don't be difficult, pretty lady," the man growled, grabbing for her reticule. In that moment, shots rang out from the ridge above the trail. 2 bandits fell immediately. The others scrambled for their horses, firing wildly as they fled. Olivia looked up to see a lone rider descending the ridge, rifle in hand. As he approached, she could make out a tall man with broad shoulders, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. He wore trail-worn clothes, denim pants, a faded blue shirt, and a leather vest that had seen better days. "Everyone all right?" he asked, his voice deep and calm as he dismounted. The stage driver nodded, visibly relieved. "Thanks to you, mister, we're in your debt." The stranger nodded briefly, then knelt to check the 2 fallen bandits. "This one's dead," he announced. "This one's alive but won't last long." He removed their masks, revealing young faces barely old enough to shave. "The Colton boys," he muttered, "been raiding stages for months." Olivia watched as he searched their pockets, finding a few gold pieces and a pocket watch which he handed to the driver. "For the company's trouble," he said. The driver introduced himself as Hank Wilkins and then gestured to the passengers. When it came to Olivia's turn, she stepped forward. "Olivia Ventura," she said, offering her hand. "I'm most grateful for your intervention, Mr. Isaac Calloway," he replied, removing his hat to reveal intense blue eyes and dark hair streaked with sun. He appeared to be in his late 20s, with a face weathered by the elements but handsome in its rugged way. "Folks, just call me Ike." Olivia noticed a star pinned to his vest. "You're a lawman?" U.S. Marshal, he confirmed. "Been tracking these boys for 2 weeks." After the bodies were secured to their horses, Marshal Calloway looked at the sun's position. "Copper Canyon's still a day's ride. The axle won't hold with the extra weight. I'll escort you to Thompson's Station. It's 4 hours ahead. We can get help there." As they traveled, Olivia found herself seated beside Marshal Calloway, who had given his horse to the elderly woman to ride alongside the stage. The closeness of him, the smell of leather and gunpowder, the quiet confidence in his movements made her acutely aware of him in a way that was unfamiliar and unsettling. "What takes you to Copper Canyon, Miss Ventura?" he asked after they'd been traveling for an hour. "I'm to be the schoolteacher," she replied. He raised an eyebrow. "Schoolteacher? Copper Canyon's no place for a lady like yourself. It's a rough mining town." Olivia bristled. "I have no choice, Marshal. I must earn my way now. No family." "None that wants me," she said before she could stop herself. She looked away, embarrassed by her candor. He was quiet for a moment. "Family's not always who you're born to," he finally said. "Sometimes it's who finds you along the way." Thompson's Station turned out to be little more than a trading post with a few cabins clustered around it. But it had what they needed: a blacksmith who could properly repair the stagecoach and beds for the night. As evening fell, Olivia sat on the porch of the trading post, watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson. Marshal Calloway joined her, offering a tin cup of coffee. "Thank you," she said, accepting it gratefully. "Bad news from Copper Canyon," he said after a moment. "Seems the previous schoolteacher decided to stay after all. The position's been filled." Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. "But I was promised. I have the letter right here." She fumbled in her reticule for the correspondence that had been her hope. Marshal Calloway read it quickly. "This is dated 2 months ago, Miss Ventura." "It's all I have," she whispered, feeling the ground shifting beneath her. "Where will I go now?" He studied her for a long moment. "I'm headed to Silverton after I deliver the Colton boys to the territorial prison in Yuma. It's a decent town, growing fast. They might need a teacher." Hope flickered briefly, then died. "I have barely enough money to last a week. I can't afford more travel." The marshal was quiet for so long that Olivia thought the conversation had ended. Then he cleared his throat. "My sister Martha runs a boarding house in Silverton. She's always complaining about needing help. You could work for her until you find something more suitable." Olivia stared at him, trying to determine if this was charity or something else. "Why would you help me? You don't know me." His blue eyes met hers directly. "I know enough. I know you're alone and trying to make your way honestly. That deserves respect, not pity." The next morning, Olivia found herself facing a decision. Continue to Copper Canyon with no prospects, or accompany Marshal Calloway to Yuma and then to Silverton. In the end, it wasn't really a choice at all. They parted ways with the stagecoach and its passengers. The marshal acquired a sturdy mare for Olivia to ride from the trading post owner, promising to return it on his next journey through. The journey to Yuma took 4 days, during which Olivia learned more about Isaac Calloway than she'd expected to. He'd grown up on a ranch near Denver, joined the Union Army at 18 despite being from a territory not directly involved in the war, and afterward had drifted west, eventually becoming a deputy and then a marshal. "What about you?" he asked as they made camp on the 3rd night, the prisoner secured and already sleeping. "How did a clearly educated young woman end up alone on a stagecoach to nowhere?" Olivia stared into the fire. "My father was the banker in Stillwater Creek. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. When the influenza came through last winter, it took both my parents within a week of each other. My uncle, my father's brother, was my only family. He made it clear I was unwanted, a burden. Isaac's jaw tightened. Some men don't deserve the title of family. He has 6 children of his own, Olivia said, though it wasn't really an excuse. But yes, it was difficult to be cast aside so easily. His loss, Isaac said simply. Any man would be fortunate to have someone like you in his family. The words hung in the night air between them, laden with meaning Olivia wasn't ready to examine. Yuma brought the harsh reality of their arrangement into focus. The territorial prison was a forbidding adobe structure, and Isaac had official duties to perform. He found Olivia lodging at a respectable hotel and promised to return for her in 2 days. Alone in her room, Olivia confronted her situation. She was placing her future in the hands of a man she'd known less than a week. It was either foolishly trusting or desperately pragmatic. Perhaps both. True to his word, Isaac returned in 2 days and they set out for Silverton. The journey would take them through the heart of the Arizona Territory, a landscape both beautiful and unforgiving. As they traveled, Olivia noticed a change in Isaac. Away from his official duties, he was more relaxed, even playful at times. He taught her to shoot his spare revolver, patiently correcting her stance and grip until she could hit a can at 10 paces. Not bad for a schoolteacher, he said with a rare smile that transformed his face. I never actually taught school, she admitted. But I was a good student and I loved to read. I thought I could do it. You still can, he said. Silverton's growing, they'll need a school soon enough. It was during the final leg of their journey that disaster struck. They were crossing a high desert plateau when Isaac's horse suddenly reared, throwing him to the ground. A rattlesnake, disturbed by their passage, had struck at the horse's leg. The horse bolted, leaving Isaac on the ground, clutching his arm where he had landed on a rock. The snake, still agitated, coiled to strike again. Without thinking, Olivia drew the revolver Isaac had been teaching her to use and fired. Her shot missed the snake but startled it enough to slither away into the rocks. Isaac! She dismounted quickly and rushed to his side. Are you hurt? He grimaced as he tried to move his arm. Broken, I think, not the first time. He looked up at her with newfound respect, quick thinking with the snake. They had no choice but to continue. Isaac fashioned a sling from his bandana and they both rode Olivia's mare, Isaac seated behind her. The closeness was intimate in a way that made Olivia's heart race, his chest warm against her back, his good arm around her waist to steady himself. By nightfall, they reached a small cabin that Isaac knew of, a line shack used by cattle outfits during roundup. It was abandoned now but offered shelter. We'll rest here tonight, he said as they dismounted. Silverton's just half a day's ride tomorrow. The cabin was sparse but clean enough. A single room with a stone fireplace, a rough wooden table with 2 chairs, and a narrow bed against one wall. Olivia busied herself gathering wood for a fire while Isaac awkwardly attempted to unsaddle the horse one-handed. Let me, she insisted, taking over the task. Inside, she helped him remove his vest and shirt to better examine his arm. The sight of his bare chest, muscled and scarred from what must have been a lifetime of hard work and danger, made her cheeks burn. She focused on his arm, which was swelling and bruised but not deformed. I don't think it's broken after all, she said after gently probing the injury. Badly bruised, certainly, he nodded. Feels better already with your touch. The words, spoken softly in the dim cabin, shifted something between them. Olivia became acutely aware of how close they were, how alone. She stepped back, busying herself with preparing a simple meal from their provisions. They ate in companionable silence, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls. When it came time to sleep, Isaac insisted on taking the floor, leaving the narrow bed for Olivia. I've slept on worse, he assured her when she protested. Olivia lay awake long into the night, listening to Isaac's steady breathing, wondering at the strange turn her life had taken. A week ago, she had been a burden, unwanted and alone. Now she was traveling across the territory with a man who had shown her nothing but respect and kindness. Morning brought clarity, and with it, Silverton. The town appeared on the horizon around noon, a collection of wooden buildings sprawled along a main street, with a church steeple rising above them. "Home," Isaac said simply as they approached. Silverton proved to be larger and more civilized than Olivia had expected. There were proper buildings with glass windows, a hotel, several saloons and shops that catered to more than just basic necessities. It was a town on the rise, fueled by the silver mines that gave it its name. Martha Calloway's boarding house stood at the respectable end of town, a two-story white clapboard building with green shutters and a wide porch. Martha herself was a revelation, a no-nonsense woman in her 30s with the same striking blue eyes as her brother, but with laugh lines around them. "Isaac Calloway, what have you done to yourself now?" she demanded upon seeing his arm in the sling. Then her gaze fell on Olivia. "And who's this?" "Martha, this is Miss Olivia Ventura. She's the new schoolteacher I wrote to you about." Olivia's surprise must have shown on her face because Isaac quickly added, "I sent a telegram from Yuma. Thought it might smooth the way." Martha's skeptical expression softened as she looked Olivia over. "Well, you certainly don't look like the usual strays my brother brings home." Come in, come in. You must be exhausted." The boarding house was clean and comfortable, with 6 rooms for permanent boarders and a large dining room where Martha served meals. Olivia was given a small but pleasant room at the back of the house, overlooking a kitchen garden. "It's not much," Martha apologized, "but it's quiet and you'll have privacy." "It's perfect," Olivia assured her, overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness. Over dinner that evening, a hearty stew served to the boarders, who consisted of the town's barber, a clerk from the assayer's office, and 2 elderly sisters who owned the millinery shop. Martha explained the arrangement. "You'll help with the cooking and cleaning in exchange for room and board. Once the town council approves the new school, you'll have your teaching position and can pay for your room properly." "New school?" Olivia looked to Isaac, who was focused on his stew. "Yes, Isaac has been pestering the council for months about building a proper school. The children here have been making do with lessons in the church when the circuit preacher isn't using it." Isaac cleared his throat. "The town's growing. Children need education." Later, after the boarders had retired and Martha was in the kitchen, Olivia confronted Isaac on the porch. "You planned this all along, didn't you?" "There never was a teaching position in Copper Canyon." He had the grace to look sheepish. "The letter was real enough. I just knew the position had been filled because I passed through Copper Canyon a month ago." "Why the deception? Why not simply tell me?" His expression grew serious. "Would you have come with me if I had? A strange man offering to take you to another town on the promise of a job that doesn't exist yet?" She had to admit he was right. "No, I wouldn't have. I saw something in you, Olivia. Strength, intelligence, dignity despite your circumstances. Silverton needs someone like you, and maybe—" He hesitated. "Maybe I thought you deserved better than what fate had handed you." The sincerity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Thank you," she said softly, "for seeing value in me when others saw only a burden." He reached out, his fingers gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You could never be a burden, Olivia. You're a gift to anyone fortunate enough to know you." The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm. Olivia worked alongside Martha, learning to cook for a houseful of boarders and manage the endless laundry and cleaning. Isaac came and went on his marshal duties, but always returned to Silverton, usually staying at the boarding house for a few days before riding out again. During those stays, he and Olivia spent evenings on the porch, talking late into the night. She learned about his dreams of someday having his own ranch, about the brother he'd lost in the war, about his belief that the frontier needed law before it could truly flourish. In turn, she shared stories of her childhood, her love of literature, her secret ambition to someday write stories of her own. He listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he valued her thoughts and opinions. Martha watched these interactions with knowing eyes. "My brother's never brought a woman home before," she told Olivia one afternoon as they kneaded bread dough side by side. He's particular about the company he keeps. We're friends, Olivia insisted, though the word seemed inadequate for what was growing between them. "Hum," was all Martha said, a smile playing at her lips. The town council finally approved the school in late summer, and construction began immediately. Isaac had donated part of his own land at the edge of town for the building site. "It was just sitting there," he said when Olivia tried to thank him. "Land's no good unless it's put to use." The school was simple but well built, with large windows for light and a bell tower that could be heard throughout the town. When it was completed in early fall, Olivia stood in the empty classroom, running her hands over the smooth surface of the teacher's desk. "What do you think?" Isaac asked from the doorway. "It's perfect," she said, unable to keep the emotion from her voice. "I never thought I'd have this opportunity." "You earned it," he said, coming to stand beside her. "The council was impressed by your knowledge and your work with the children at Sunday services." Enrollment began immediately, with 27 children signing up for classes ranging from 6-year-olds to teenagers eager for education before entering the workforce. Olivia threw herself into teaching with passion and creativity, earning the respect of parents and the adoration of her pupils. As winter approached, Isaac's visits to Silverton became more frequent and longer in duration. The townsfolk began to notice, and gossip circulated about the handsome Marshal and the pretty schoolteacher. "People are talking," Martha warned Olivia. "Not that I mind, I think you're good for him, but reputations are fragile things in a small town." Olivia knew Martha was right, but she couldn't bring herself to distance herself from Isaac. Their connection had deepened into something precious and vital. The situation came to a head during the Christmas social at the church. The entire town gathered for singing, food, and celebration. Olivia wore her best dress, a deep green wool that Martha had helped her remake from one of her mother's gowns. Isaac appeared at her side as she was serving punch to the children. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you." She smiled, noting how handsome he looked in his dark suit, his marshal's badge polished to a shine. Later, as the celebration continued, he asked her to step outside for a moment. The night was clear and cold, stars brilliant in the black sky above them. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a book, a leather-bound collection of Shakespeare's sonnets. "Isaac, it's wonderful," she breathed, running her fingers over the embossed cover. "Open it," he urged, on the flyleaf he had written, "To Olivia, who brings light to every room she enters, with admiration and love, Isaac." She looked up at him, her heart racing. "Love," she whispered. He took her hands in his. "I've known many kinds of courage in my life, Olivia. I've faced outlaws and wild animals, crossed deserts and mountains. But I've never known courage like yours to face the world alone, head high, determined to make your own way despite the cruelty of those who should have protected you." He drew a deep breath. "I love you. I think I've loved you since I saw you standing beside that stagecoach, refusing to be broken by circumstances. You're not a burden, Olivia. You're a gift, the most precious gift I've ever received." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I love you too, Isaac. You saw a value in me when I couldn't see it in myself." He kissed her then, beneath the winter stars, his arms strong around her. When they parted, he reached into his pocket and produced a small velvet box. "I'm not a wealthy man," he said as he opened it to reveal a simple gold band set with a single small diamond. "But everything I have is yours if you'll have me." "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, Isaac Calloway, I will marry you." They were married in the spring when wildflowers carpeted the desert floor. The whole town turned out for the ceremony, held in the schoolhouse Isaac had built and where Olivia would continue to teach. Martha wept openly as they exchanged vows, and even the town's crusty old mayor was seen dabbing at his eyes during the ceremony. Their home was a small but sturdy cabin Isaac had built on his land. with bookshelves he had crafted specifically for Olivia's growing collection and wide windows that let in the desert light she had come to love. At their wedding reception, Olivia's uncle Theodore made an unexpected appearance. He had heard of her success and had come to reconnect with family, though everyone understood his true motives when he began inquiring about the silver mines. Isaac intercepted him before he could approach Olivia. "Mr. Ventura," he said, his voice pleasant but his eyes hard. "I believe you once called your niece a burden." Theodore shifted uncomfortably. "Family misunderstandings, water under the bridge now." "No," Isaac said firmly, "not water under the bridge. You cast aside the most remarkable woman I've ever known because you saw no value in her beyond what she could contribute to your household. That speaks to your character, not hers." He leaned closer. "Olivia is my wife now, and she has a family that treasures her. She doesn't need your belated recognition or your insincere affection. I suggest you return to Stillwater Creek with the knowledge that you made the greatest mistake of your life when you turned her away." Theodore left shortly afterward, and Olivia, who had observed the exchange from across the room, approached her husband. "What did he want?" she asked. "Nothing worth having," Isaac replied, taking her hand. "Nothing compared to what I already have." 5 years later, Olivia stood on the porch of their expanded home, watching as Isaac taught their 3-year-old son Benjamin to ride his first pony in the yard. Their infant daughter Julia slept in her cradle beside Olivia, her tiny hand wrapped around her mother's finger. Silverton had grown into a proper town with a hotel, a bank where Olivia served on the board, and a school that now employed 3 teachers, though Olivia still served as headmistress. Isaac had reduced his duties as marshal, focusing instead on the small ranch they had built together. He still helped with law enforcement when needed, but his priorities had shifted to his family and community. As she watched her husband lift their laughing son from the pony and swing him around, Olivia thought about the journey that had brought her here. From being called a burden to becoming the heart of a family and a respected member of a community. "Mama, look," Benjamin called as Isaac set him back on the pony. "I see you, darling," she called back. "You're doing wonderfully." Isaac looked up at her then, his smile as warm and genuine as it had been that first night on the trading post porch. In his eyes, she saw what she had always found there: not judgment or calculation, but love and respect. She had been called a burden once, by those who couldn't see her worth. But Isaac Calloway had seen it from the beginning. "You're my gift," he had told her on countless occasions since that Christmas night, and in his love she had found not just security or comfort, but the freedom to become fully herself. As the Arizona sun set behind them, painting the desert in gold and crimson, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be: home, with the family that had found her along the way.